Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over how to do photo stacking in Photoshop after we edit some star trail photos in Lightroom. So I went out the other night to a little place here in Greater Vancouver. It was very impromptu. I just wanted to see if I could get some star trail photography results in an urban environment, and managed to come away with a pretty good result. Again, this is in an urban environment. I shot about 100 and some odd pictures. We're going to edit them here in Lightroom, or I am at least. As you can see, when you shoot in RAW, you don't really get sort of instant results from this. This is one of the images. As you can see, this is headed or faced north towards the North Star and over the mountains of the North Shore of Vancouver. You can see a few stars, but what we're going to do in Lightroom is bring out those stars a little bit more. And this is going to be a good example of the ability to shoot star trail photography in an urban environment and come away with pretty good results, provided that you do shoot in RAW format. These are my settings that I used. These are my ultra wide 10mm, 30-second exposures, and f4 and ISO 200, just to kind of reduce the noise a little bit. We're going to reduce it a little bit more. We're using Lightroom as well. I did shoot relatively cool, and I sort of wanted to give it a little bit of a cool tone, just to kind of get rid of some of the haze or whatnot that might have been in the air. But for the most part, yeah, shoot cool. First thing that I usually do is I just sort of dehaze the images, just to kind of get rid of a little bit of the haze that might be in the air. And as you can see, not a huge amount of change, but it does bring out a little bit of the pop of the stars and sort of exposes some of the other ones that are there. Because again, I mean, the stars are there, and we just use the software like Lightroom or Photoshop to kind of bring those out a little bit more, provided again that you shoot in RAW format. Clarity, as you can see, makes the stars pop a little bit more. So we're getting some good results here as we sort of work our way through the photos. And as you crank it all the way up, you can see that there's actually quite a few stars that do pop. But also brings out the haze a little bit too, which I kind of want to reduce. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit. The object here is not to create an individual still frame of a perfect astro photograph. The object here is to create a star trail photography, or photograph I should say. So individual frames are not super important here. Again, with a 30-second exposure, nothing's going to be super crisp or clean, but the object is to stack these photos later on in Photoshop to create a cool star trail photograph. So the individual still frames as individuals, not super important. I did want to bring up the exposure a little bit, and I guess what that does is it totally brings out more stars, which is great. But as you can see, even though to the naked eye it was a relatively clear evening, there was some little bit of haze, a little bit of cloud in the air. This is done at about, I don't know, 10:30 at night. Pretty good though. I mean, even if you were just to kind of say, you know, hey, look at this, show your friends this photograph, look what you can actually see in an urban environment. The stars are there. It's kind of cool. But again, we're just going to kind of tweak these a little bit more, just to kind of make those stars pop. And once you've done that, I mean, here's a good example. This is just straight out of the camera. That's edited. So as you can see, the stars are there, but to the naked eye, they're not. This is the benefit of shooting in the RAW format, is you have the ability to kind of go through your photos afterwards and kind of go, yeah, there are a ton of stars that are out there that in an urban environment you just can't see because of light pollution or whatnot. But this tutorial is a good example of the ability to actually get good star trail photograph results in an urban environment. Just going to bring up that a little bit to kind of reduce the amount of noise. Even at ISO 200 at a 30-second exposure, you're going to get a bit of noise. So I'm just going to kind of try to clean that up. I'm not going to try to make it too soft or whatnot. I just kind of want to get rid of a little bit of that noise. Yeah, that does look pretty good. And again, we're going to stack these images so individual star photographs individually is not super important. The idea is to kind of create a good baseline for the photograph so that we can apply those changes to all of the other ones. So once you've got your edit done, and you can tell that you've got the one edit done by the little icon at the bottom there, you're going to want to select all the other images, Control A or Command A. Make sure you have the edited one selected. It is be the brighter gray color versus the slightly darker gray, and you click the sync button. And it'll bring up all these. These should be all double checked. These are all the changes you probably made. We didn't do any spot removal, that's why it's not changed. And click the synchronize button. It'll do its thing and apply those changes to all of the images that you have selected. And then once that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to export those. And kind of scroll through them all just to make sure the changes are there. Yep, everything looks good. Might do some cropping later on just to kind of get rid of some of the little city lights down there, but for the most part it looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and just make sure it's applied it to all of them. That looks good. And from there, yeah, everything looks pretty good. And we're going to go on there, we're going to export that, and this is pretty straightforward. If you've exported batch photos before, you know what to do. Choose a folder, and in this case we're going to throw it in the edit folder of my Star Trails one. Yeah, select the folder, give it a name. This is relatively important because I just want to give it a good name because I am going to do a little bit of a time lapse later on using a different program called Star Stacks. But today we're just going to show you how to do this in Lightroom and Photoshop. Give it a name so you have a nice sequence. Don't resize it, quality 100. We want everything as max as possible. Click on export, it'll do its thing. Once it's finished doing its export, and again, I mean, these are shot in an urban environment. These are like, I mean, to the north is North Vancouver, the North Shore Mountains. So from here we're going to go to Photoshop, and we're going to open load files into stack, click on browse. We're going to find where those images were. They're in the edit folder. I'm going to click, there they are, numbered 1 to 107. You sort of want to highlight them all, Control A, Command A, and then click OK. And what Photoshop will do is it'll load those all into a series of layers. I just want to make sure they're all there. So we've got Star Trail 0001 all the way down to 107. That's cool. Click OK, and what it'll do is it'll load those into a series of layers from 107 to 1. And again, what I was saying is that this is shot in the middle of an urban environment. This is top of a hill in middle of Greater Vancouver called Burnaby Mountain. This is facing the North Shore, and that little bright ski hill to the bottom left there, that's Mount Seymour. To the bottom right, that's Port Moody. These are all suburbs of Vancouver, and Burnaby Mountain is kind of right smack in the middle of Greater Vancouver, and the ability to have the ability to shoot an image like this or a sequence like this in the middle of an urban environment is shows you the possibility that you have. You don't really have to go way out to the boonies where there is no light pollution. I mean, you can, but I mean, this was 15 minutes away from my house. I just kind of drove up the hill, and it was very impromptu and very spur of the moment. So just to kind of show you that yes, you can shoot something like this in the middle of an urban environment is possible, which is quite encouraging. And again, as long as you shoot in RAW format, you have the ability to bring these stars out, which is kind of neat. I mean, even if it's just to kind of show your friends, not so much a commercial type of endeavor, but it could be. So yeah, so once you've got that, you want to select all of your layers in Photoshop, Command A, Control A, and you want to go up to the blend mode in the layers, and you want to just go down to lighten, and that's where the magic happens. Look at that. There's 107 images, 30-second exposures each, and you get this really cool swirling star light trail thing circling around the North Star. And to find the North Star, super easy. You just need a compass on your phone, or go to the dollar store and buy a compass. Find where north is and point your camera in that direction. What I did notice, though, is either the wind was blowing or my tripod might have moved. There's a couple of gaps in the stars as well, probably when I first started shooting, that I kind of want to clean up a little bit. Maybe the first couple of frames. The one in the middle I can't really do much about. I don't really want to do much about that. But the first couple of them I kind of want to maybe eliminate those. And I do want to get rid of that tree movement. So I'm going to kind of, what you have to do here is you kind of have to just go through your layers and find out the culprits. So I know that's probably the first and second frame. So if I just kind of turn that eyeball off, yeah, it gets rid of those first two. And this one, I did randomly go through these, and I did actually find the right one, but it is frame number 10. So if I turn that off, I can kind of just get a little bit of a more crisp photo, so I don't get that kind of movement of the tree. So I'm just going to turn that one off. And you can do the same if you've got the same kind of results. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It did add a gap to one of them, but I'm not terribly worried about that. From a distance, it looks pretty good. Yeah, from there, probably going to want to do a bit of a crop. See what it looks like without those city lights there. Sort of just, yeah, grab your little crop box there and crop. Let it do its thing. Let it do its thing, I should say. And yeah, it looks a little bit better without the lights. A little less distracting. A little bit down the bottom there. Let me just trim that off. And again, you can kind of do this yourself to your own images. Can't really do too much about the ski hill in the bottom left there. I'm not terribly worried about that. I mean, you could if you want, but yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Looks good. All nice swirlies. Again, middle of an urban environment. Greater Vancouver. Go ahead and save this. Give it a name. Find a location. And same thing, you can kind of do whatever you want with this. You can save it to your desktop. Doesn't really matter. I like to keep mine a little more organized, but yeah, so we're just going to name this Star Trails. It's not Trails. And save it as a JPEG. I generally also save it as PSD files in case I want to come back and do some more edits to it, but for the most part we're just going to save it as a JPEG today. And yeah, highest possible quality. There we go. Let's take a look at the final image. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Again, super impromptu photo. Now if you go out to the boonies and you're way off where there's no light pollution, you might get even better results, but this is a good example of what you can achieve if you do this type of thing in the middle of your city or town. It's totally possible to get these kinds of results. And that's it for this video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, because the more people that subscribe to this channel, the more motivation I have to create more videos and tutorials like this. Thanks, everybody.